Doing this in a separate video because it's going to sound kind of ranty, but the reason I bought this is because I wanted to get something with more power than my Can-Am, and I wanted something pretty reliable. So more power means there's no Honda options available, except for the Honda Pioneer 1000, which I looked at, but after much deliberation decided it was too wide. I couldn't ride it on some of my favorite state trails in North Carolina and South Carolina because it's wider than the trail limits. It's also very heavy, and it's geared a little bit high, frankly. Even in low range, people are having a hard time spinning a 30, which is not something you should have a problem with on a utility-inspired 1000cc side-by-side. It's just been a 30 stock. So yeah, that's why I didn't get the Honda. It's also, you know, kind of heavy, very heavy. So yep, that ruled that out. I couldn't get the Pioneer 500 because it's slow as balls and only has 4 inches of suspension travel or something, maybe 5. This has twice that. And I was looking hardcore at those Polaris four-wheelers. I went to a couple different dealerships, the 850 High Lifter Edition, even the 1000, even the regular 850. But they have a reputation for being extremely unreliable. They blow front diffs all the time. They're really heavy. They have no suspension travel because it's been limited to like 4 inches in order to run 29.5s, which is just stupid. They have arched A-arms, but if you actually look at the arched A-arm, the shock mount hangs down significantly lower than the arch. So, I mean, a lot of things about that bike kind of felt like a scam, in the same way that the XMR is a huge scam. But I really like the radiators on the Polaris. I really like the factory snorkels. But the fact that the engine was sideways and the belt was behind it and it was so inaccessible and was so heavy and so wide. This is as narrow as a 1000 Polaris High Lifter Edition. So yeah, I was just couldn't bring myself to buy it. Too many bad reviews. Had heard nothing but great things about these, other than that they catch on fire. People do say they have front diff problems. We'll see. I don't know, but I've been happy with it so far. I love the power. I looked at the Can-Ams, the 1000 Renegade. I really liked, but it was way too expensive and way too heavy. It's like supposed to be a sport mutter, and it weighs 1,000 pounds, and it only seats one person. And the radiator isn't even relocated. I think if it had a factory radiator relocate, I might have bought it. But that was the thing. It's like you're going to sell me a mud bike, and then I'm going to have to relocate the radiator with your ghetto-ass kit, and it's going to be right in front of my face, looking terrible, blowing hot air on me. Yeah, no thank you. And I looked at the XMR 850, which was very promising until I did some research for myself. Contradictory to what all the dealerships told me, it does not have a gear reduction compared to my 570. So yeah, you've heard this argument, right? More power, more tire, no gear reduction, the belts in between all that, it's going to go through belts even worse than my 570 does. So yep, that was out the window. So I pretty much ruled out every ATV. I was considering buying another Rubicon, but trying the double clutch to get high and low range. But I've heard that when they're in second or third gear pulling and it starts to bog, it'll automatically shift down to the lower gear, ripping the tires loose, even if you have it in manual mode. Which is a huge deal breaker for me, because sometimes you want to cruise in sand or whatever in a higher gear and not be tacking out your motor, burning all kinds of gas and stuff. Also, I heard that all the electronics like that, when sometimes it's in water and you're trying to shift, it'll get stuck in gear, give you the little signal where it's in between gears. You got to rock it and all kinds of stuff. And I've also ridden them before, and I didn't like how it felt. If I'm going to be on a Honda and I'm only going to have, 28 horsepower, I might as well have a manual. The high and low range is cool, but because the 5-speed it has is such close ratio, I wasn't getting that much more than I would be with my bike with a gear reduction. So, long story short, I could have bought it, done a 40% gear reduction. It would have been too slow. It would have had a top speed of like 45 miles an hour on 30 Zillas, which is just too slow. So, that's out the window. I thought about buying another Footshift Rubicon because, why not? They're great. Why not have 2 of them? For me and the old lady or whoever else wants to come ride with me. And I didn't do that because I already have one and they don't break, so I really don't need 2. So I'm like, well, I was giving someone some criticism, advice, whatever, online, and I was saying, look, if you're going to buy a 1000cc four-wheeler that weighs 1,500 pounds, you might as well have a side-by-side that seats 2 people and has a bed. And I thought about it, man, that's good advice. If you want something with a big bore, you might as well get a side-by-side. They make them as narrow as four-wheelers. They have 2 seats and a bed. So if your parents want to come ride, you got a seat for your mom. It's safe. It's got a roll cage. You can let idiots drive it. Not really my thing, right? Because you can't throw your weight around, and once they get stuck, they're stuck. they're heavy and you can't use body language, you're pretty much sitting and steering. So it's not as much of a riding experience, but as far as like hauling ass and getting sideways and stuff like that, you can do that sitting down just about as good as you can standing up on a 1,000-pound bike. On a four-wheeler that's that heavy, your body language isn't having that much effect regardless. So that was my logic for, fuck it, just get a side-by-side. And I've talked a lot of shit about side-by-sides. I think they destroy trails, and I think they're terrible. And I've talked a lot of shit about Polaris, because every Polaris I've ever ridden with was a piece of crap. With the exception of these Razors and Rangers, I've actually been really impressed with them. They've had electrical problems, which, whatever. Even the Honda Rubicon has some flashing lights. But they can all be addressed by relocating components, greasing connectors and stuff like that, which I'm going to do tonight. I'm going to grease every connector on this bike. So, I'll give it a shot. And plus, I would never buy a Polaris, Can-Am, anything else used. But buying new, I got a warranty. It's new. No one else has screwed with it yet. So I can probably keep it running enough. And it honestly does feel like a quality machine. The Durhamtown, or Adventure World ride, I took it pretty easy on it. It was still in break-in. First 3 hours, you're not supposed to use any kind of throttle. So you notice in that video, I was creeping around. Today, it's got 6 hours on it now. I went out and opened it up a little bit. So I'm going to take a tank of gas. It says after your first 2 tanks of fuel, it's broken in. So I never went full throttle, but I did use probably 75-80% of the throttle a few times, and it was impressive. The thing definitely has some get up and go for a side-by-side. And it's what you'd expect. I mean, it's not that heavy, and it has a lot of power. But my 2 criticisms of it, or 3 probably, needs lower gears and low. I wish they would have made this plastic piece right here not 3 inches wide, made it 1/2 inch wide, and put me a piece of metal wrapped around here to protect the sides of it from trees and stuff. And I wish that it had more clearance under the center. I don't see why, where the seats are and stuff, they couldn't have the frame come up and then go back down to where the motor is, put the fuel tank in the center or something, make it shallower, whatever. An extra little bit of clearance right where it says Polaris would be game changing. And if I made a side-by-side, I would do that for people, because that's exactly where it hangs up climbing out of holes, is right there. But yeah, so in case anybody's wondering, I've still got this piece of shit. If you're looking to buy the biggest turd on the face of the earth, it's for sale. That's why it's on stock tires. It's actually running pretty good at the moment, because I just put, new axles in the back and relocated the radiator, snorkel, and got the CVTech all tuned up, and yeah, whatever. Honda is doing great. Never have to touch it. But this is for sale. If anyone wants a quality piece of shit. No, it's actually pretty fast. I mean, it'll do wheelies and stuff. It's missing a headlight to give that nice, pirate look. Everyone loves that. That radiator relocate is obnoxious, though.